Action.
Hey friend, in this video, we are going to be painting a loose watercolor parrot tulip. Parrot tulips are my absolute favorite flower. I wrote this book, Everyday Watercolor Flowers. It's available on Amazon. You can click the link below if you want to follow along with my own floral watercolor book. But also, stick to the end of this video because the tutorial is going to be amazing, but also we're giving away a copy of this very book. So make sure you stick till the end to hear about how to enter into the giveaway. And for now, let's dive into this tutorial. All right, so parrot tulips. I love parrot tulips. If you've never seen a photo of a parrot tulip or seen one in real life, make sure you Google it. It's different than a regular tulip. They've got this really fun, fluffy, feathery, hairy texture on the edges of the petals. And it's just so fun to paint, but it's also just a beautiful flower. There's also this like sunset orange and yellow and pink color one that we're gonna paint today. I love this flower. All right, so let's get started and let's just, okay, whoa, rewind, Jenna. So every time I paint a flower, a loose style flower, I always start with breaking it down to its basic shape. So a parrot tulip, for example, depending on the perspective that you're viewing it from, if we're viewing it from the side, it's gonna be a cone shape, because if you think about how a flower grows, it starts off as a bud or a little ball, a sphere, and the stem is gonna be right holding up that ball or sphere. And then as a flower grows, it's kind of like peeling an orange. The peels staying at the bottom of that ball, but those peels are the petals of the flower, so they're peeling open, but they're staying connected at the base where the stem is. And then so if we're seeing a wide open parrot tulip, for example, it's kind of got this bell shape where you're seeing the bottom of the bell facing you, and it's just kind of like wide open like this. The shape of the petals is going to be where we're going to focus most of our time in the beginning, and then we're going to combine it all together for that overall shape, and then I'm going to show you how to put it all together. So to start, I'm going to mix up some Scarlet Lake and Opera Rose. All the supplies that I'm using in this video will be in the description below, so make sure you check it out. But I'm going to mix up some Scarlet Lake and Opera Rose as my main orangey pink color. The more color I'm trying to grab on my brush, the more I'll kind of dip in my water cup so I don't dry out my brush. I want a lot of pigment on my brush, and I'm bringing it into this empty mixing well to mix with the pink. Obviously, it's not a completely empty mixing well because I'm very type B. But as Bob Ross would say, this is where happy accidents happen. So if this stresses you out, I mean, you do you, boo. So I'm mixing a touch of Opera Rose in with my Scarlet Lake, and maybe a touch of orange as well. All right. So got a lot of that mixture on my size 6 brush, and now I'm going to paint just a petal by itself so I can kind of explain my process for painting these petals individually so we can combine them together. All right, so I'm going to have my flower that I'm about to paint is going to be a wide open parrot tulip, so the petals are kind of creating this star shape. Whenever you paint any type of flower, you need to remember the starting point for every single petal. A lot of people, when they're painting these petals, they're just kind of placing them wherever, but you need to be mindful of the connecting spot to the stem. So I'm going to have my stamen area here, so I'm going to point all of my petals to that stamen area. That's invisible right now, but it will go there eventually. So I'm going to start with the pigment that I have on my brush currently. I'm going to get rid of a lot of it in my water cup and swipe off on the edge of my water cup to get rid of that excess water about 2 times. And then to paint this tulip petal, I'm starting with about a 35-45 degree angle on my size 6 round brush. And I'm going to start with little to no pressure and create kind of, this line or this little stroke that's thin. And then from here, I might grab a little bit more water. I wanna make sure it stays really wet because I'm gonna use some wet and wet with adding more saturation to the petal. And then I'm going to apply pressure, so I'm pushing on my brush so that it fans out and looping back down. And I'm going to cover that up like so. So we're kind of creating this upside down teardrop shape. And then this is where the fun happens. So I'm gonna get rid of all that pigment off my brush and just grab some lemon yellow deep in my palette, the yellow color. And I am going to create this sunset gradient on this petal while this pinky color is still wet. So I'm just going to poke in some yellow to the base here. And I might grab my dry brush. I dried this brush all the way off, and I'm just gonna pick up some of this saturation here because I want the edges to be really dark and the center of the petal to kind of be lighter. Then I'm gonna grab Scarlet Lake, a really thick mixture of Scarlet Lake and Opera Rose, and I'm using a vertical hold. If you have a really shaky hand when you paint, put your free hand down kind of like a fist and rest your painting hand on it. And then we're just gonna go up to the edge of this petal and kind of just give it this hairy texture. I'm not really overthinking about where I'm placing it, but I'm just kind of going in really lightly, just to the edges. And I just lightened my brush too, so we have some lighter hairs coming off. Now I'm gonna do the same exact thing for my next petal, but it's going to be with mostly just water on my brush first. And so I'm creating this star. I'm gonna start where the center of the flower is, point towards it, pull out a line, and maybe this petal is shorter because it's falling kind of away from me. I'm gonna grab yellow, poke that in. This time I'm just gonna grab pink on my brush with a touch of Scarlet Lake. So we've got some variety in our petals. And then we're gonna go to the outer edge and do the same hairy texture stuff. And then we'll keep going, pull out another petal here. I like to work really quick on these petals so that I can have some fun bleeds happening between each petal. See, like that right there is touching. Yellow. If you're not liking how something's bleeding, just dry your brush off and soak it up. Or you can use these circular motions. I call them brushing your teeth because it's similar to how you brush your teeth and it helps it blend a lot smoother. All right, so we've got the bottom 3 petals. Now we're going to start working our way around this star shape. Still pointing towards the center where the stamen will be, with all of our petals. At this point, I might grab some orange and kind of poke it in to some of these wet areas just to reference. I don't want to take up too much space with this orange, but it'll be a nice pop of color. And now our top petal up here. Point towards the center, drag, press, and pull that teardrop, the base of that teardrop up. I want this one to be the tallest petal, because if you think of the peak of a star at the top. Working quick so I can watch those fun bleeds and blends happen with watercolor. A lot of beginners ask and struggle with water control. And if that is you, you just want to make sure that you're never creating a puddle on your paper. That puddle is going to kind of act like a wall of water. And it will block any wet pigment from actually trying to burst and bleed. And so if you're wanting this big moment of blending to happen, it just won't happen if there's a big wall of water. So you need to be mindful of the amount of water that you lay down. Because if you want it to have this big burst and blend, it just won't happen if it's being blocked by the water. You can kind of pull some of this pigment down for little line details in your petal. Or maybe go back in some of these wet petals and add it while it's still wet. Right, and then at this point, I'm gonna add a touch of yellow-green to the center of the flower only, to some of these like base areas of the petals. It's what really like fresh and close petals or flowers look like when they're really either new or they're really close to the stem. And so I'm gonna reference that. Now let's paint. Before I add the stem, I'm gonna paint a bud over here. I'm not really thinking about composition because it's just a tutorial, but if I were trying to paint a piece that I was gonna have maybe listed in my shop or something that I was commissioned to paint, composition-wise, I always try to think about how to bring people's eyes down in a zigzag through the piece. So instead of having my hero or the star of the piece be right in the center, I'm starting in the left-hand corner and then I'm gonna zigzag my way down the piece of paper and then break up all of the pink and warm colors with stems and leaves once I paint in more of my flowers. So for the bud parrot tulip, I am basically going to be creating this oval shape. So tulip petals are a bit longer and skinnier, and they create this oval shape when they're a bud instead of like a ball or a sphere, like a rose maybe, or a peony. So I'm gonna have my main petal kind of off to the side here. We're gonna see a petal from its side and then maybe a petal behind it, just seeing the top like quarter of that petal kind of coming behind it. So I'm gonna start with over here, same idea as how we painted the petals down, same idea as how we painted the petals for the first flower, but they are gonna be curving inwards and kind of hugging around this oval shape. So I'm gonna start with a thin stroke And then with a lot of water on my brush, I'm going to bring that stroke up for this petal that's kind of curving up an oval. And then same idea, I'm gonna grab yellow and plug it in to the base. Like so. Then I'm gonna grab some pink and I'm gonna do the same thing to the outer edges of the petals. Then we're gonna have one taking up this space right here. Have it be the longest one. Boom. And then we maybe just have a petal peeking out over here and right there to complete this ball or oval shaped ball. So I'm going to leave a little gap of white space between this petal and this one I just painted. Some areas are going to touch, and that's okay because I like that blending that's going to happen. But that white space is going to show that it's a separate petal. If I just blended it all together, it would become one big petal. Show a peak of yellow here. Then one right here. This flower just felt too symmetrical and it needed some more cone shape to it. So I add this little fluffy guy over here on the left. Now I'm going to give it its hair. All right. So we got here and here. Let's maybe do a bud that's coming this way if the stem is pulling it, curving down. So we've got a bud pointing down to this left-hand corner. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, at this point I am going to now add in my stems and leaves. Stems, pretty straightforward. I'm going to be using a yellow-green mixture, so some sap green mixed with some lemon yellow deep. You can bring this into a separate mixing well and make it all clean and pretty, or you can do what I do and just roll on top of your yellow. This comes right off though, it's watercolor, it's not permanent really, so if you wet this area and grab a paper towel, you can soak that up. So for my stems, I'm gonna lay down this stem first. We have our flower poking this way, and so that's telling me that the stem obviously is meeting here and then maybe coming down this way. So, and then this one will be here. So I'm just going to use a slanted hold, pull from the center of the flower, and grab more water. And then before I finish that stem, I am going to, for my leaf, I'm going to grab that main stem with a mostly vertical hold. It's about 80 degrees, 75 degrees away from the paper. And with little to no pressure, I am going to pull out the base of the leaf. And then I'm going to add pressure so the brush fans out, and I'm going to drag it in a straight line. And then as I start to curve down to the right, I'm going to release pressure so it gets thin again. And then I'm going to fold that leaf back over with pressure and release pressure and get thin. So the fatter areas are when my brush fans out and gets wide. So I'm applying pressure on the brush. And then to show that nice little fold, I'm just releasing that pressure through that curve arched area and then adding the pressure again and gradually releasing it for this tip of the leaf. Then I'm still gonna use lemon yellow deep and sap green, but I'm gonna add a touch more sap green to this next leaf so it's a little bit darker, and I'm gonna go reference a leaf coming out behind here. Add pressure. Like that. Tulip leaves are really long and kind of flap in the wind, so we're kind of giving it that wind swept effect. So now I'm going to bring this stem from this flower down. Here's the center of the flower, so we're just going to bring that out. I'm trying not to smear my leaf that I just painted. And then this is the base of this flower poking this way, so we're gonna have it kind of curve. Okay, and then our final touch, we can obviously keep going because this is a big sheet of paper, but our final touch to these parrot tulips is the stamen area. And the stamen is a dark color, a blackish brown color. So I'm going to mix up some Mars black with a touch of burnt umber. And same thing with my petals. They're all connected to the stem. So for the stamen, I'm just going to use my size 6 brush and with little to no pressure, pull out a tiny little thin stroke for the base of the stamen. And then I'm just going to press down. Thin stroke, press down. Thin stroke, press down. There you have that bit. This flower, you won't be able to see the stamen, but this one will be able to see just the top halves. So press down. Top. And there you have it. We have a fun little piece with 3 parrot tulips. I didn't finish the rest of this piece because I got lazy. But you can, if you have a big sheet of paper like this. This is like a 15 by 15 inch sheet of paper that I had laying around. I hope you loved this tutorial. Like I said, parrot tulips are my absolute favorite flower. I love the texture at the top of those petals. I'm sure you had fun. I hope you had fun painting it along with me. To remind you, we are doing a fabulous little giveaway of my book, Everyday Watercolor Flowers. So make sure, in order to enter in to win this book, you like this video, you subscribe to our channel, and you leave a comment below with how many parrot tulips you've tried to paint thus far. And along with being a subscriber to our channel, make sure your settings are public so we can actually see if you're subscribed or not. If you're private, we can't really tell. So make sure your settings are public, even if it's just for the giveaway time being. And then make sure you like, you subscribe, your settings are public, and you comment below with how many parrot tulips have you tried to paint. And we'll announce the giveaway winner very soon, so get excited, and I'll see you in the next video.